had a dark chosen one turn into the light and vice versa? There is a secret most people avoid in spiritual discussions. It's too complex, too dangerous, too uncomfortable. The secret is this: darkness and light are not fixed states. They are not final destinations. They are movements, frequencies, polarities, and, yes, initiations. You are not born into one and stuck there forever. You can be chosen by darkness and still move into the light. You can radiate light and still be pulled slowly, silently, into the arms of shadow. The idea that you are either one or the other is comforting and false. And it is this falsehood that has led countless souls to confusion, guilt, and spiritual stagnation. Because the truth is more terrifying and more freeing than we're often ready to admit. Transformation between light and dark is not only possible, it is inevitable for those on the deepest spiritual paths. You may have already felt this shift happening within yourself. Maybe you were born with a strong connection to the light. You could heal, forgive, love unconditionally. You sought peace, radiated warmth, carried others. You were the one they went to when things broke. You made sense of chaos. You held space. You were the beacon. But slowly, something changed. Life began to press harder. People betrayed you not once but repeatedly. The people you protected started to resent your light. Your boundaries got crossed. Your kindness got twisted, and you began to feel darker. Not evil, not cruel, just different, heavier, quieter, more discerning. You stopped speaking so much, you stopped explaining. The compassion was still there, but it was sharper, less willing to bleed.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe you came into this world from the shadows, fierce, guarded, misunderstood. You saw through illusions early. You didn't fit in. You weren't here to be liked. You were here to see. And you saw too much. You sensed the lies, the manipulation, the spiritual hypocrisy. You questioned everything. You learned to protect yourself. Your silence became armor. Your rage became compass. And yet, somewhere along the way, that darkness started to soften. You began to feel grief underneath the edge. You started to feel something opening, a warmth, a softness that wasn't weakness, but wisdom. You stopped burning everything and started tending to the ashes. These shifts aren't coincidences, they are transmissions. And if you're here watching this, then you're likely one of the rare few souls who were designed to cross between realms, not just once, but many times in one lifetime. And to do that without being lost, you need to understand how the transition works, because it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen because you want it to. It happens because your soul is ready for the next level of truth, and the version of you you've been carrying is no longer enough to walk the next path. Here's the first truth you need to swallow like fire. Darkness and light are not moral. They are not good or bad. They are functions. Darkness is not evil. It is the frequency of depth, detachment, discernment, destruction, solitude, initiation. Light is not perfect. It is the frequency of connection, healing, visibility, guidance, grace. Both are needed. Both serve. But neither is safe. Light can blind, darkness can seduce. And the moment you believe your current frequency is your identity, you're already falling asleep. So, can a dark chosen one turn into the light? Yes, but only by facing the part of themselves that once mocked the light as weakness. Only by realizing that gentleness can be sharper than rage, that forgiveness can be more terrifying than revenge, that to open again after being broken is the ultimate act of power. The dark chosen one who begins this shift doesn't do it because they're tired. They do it because they've seen how destruction alone is never enough. They've burned the old system down, now something must rise. And it can't rise from judgment, it must rise from grace. A grace they once rejected, but now see as gold. And can a light chosen one fall into the dark? Yes, and often they must. Not because they are failing, but because their light became ungrounded. They shined too much for others and forgot to see themselves. They kept forgiving those who didn't change. They gave until they shattered. They tried to save people who didn't want to be saved. And when the collapse came, when the betrayal arrived, they thought they'd lost their light forever. But they hadn't. They were being initiated into discernment, into boundaries, into silence, into the parts of the soul the love and light narrative never taught them to honor. The fall into darkness is not punishment, it's recalibration. It's the soul remembering that power doesn't always come through peace. Sometimes it comes through rage, through endings, through solitude. And this descent isn't a fall from grace, it is grace. The hard grace, the sacred wound, the cracking open that says, "You've given too much, now give to yourself." And here is where it all becomes clear. The goal is not to become light or to stay dark. The goal is to integrate, to remember, to stop playing on one side of the board and start becoming the entire chess game. You are not a pawn of energy, you are the consciousness behind it, the player, the witness, the storm and the eye of the storm. So I ask you something few dare to confront. Have you mistaken your spiritual season for your spiritual identity? Because if you have, then everything is about to change. When the shadow learns to forgive and the light learns to strike, the evolution of the true master. We were never meant to stay frozen in a single spiritual posture. The soul isn't a statue. It's a flame constantly flickering, adapting, consuming, and creating. But the world told us that light is always good and dark is always dangerous, and in doing so, it taught us to fear our own complexity. But what if the path to true power is not in choosing sides, but in mastering both? What if the real spiritual warrior is not the one who only radiates or only cuts, but the one who knows when to do either and doesn't flip? This is where the true evolution begins, when the dark learns to forgive and the light learns to strike. Because forgiveness isn't just a trait of the pure, it is the sharpest tool of the dark soul who's learned restraint. It's easy to destroy. It's easy to cut people off, to burn bridges, to isolate. What's hard, what's divine, is when the one who has the power to annihilate chooses to forgive, not out of naivety, but because they've seen the other side, because they know vengeance doesn't always feed the soul, it sometimes empties it. This forgiveness isn't soft. It's not the kind you post about to appear wise. It's the kind that comes after spiritual war, after betrayal, after you've seen the worst in someone and still say, "I release you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." The dark chosen one who begins to move into light doesn't lose their fire. They contain it. They choose silence over revenge. They choose distance over destruction. And that choice, that's the mark of mastery. And on the other side, something just as rare happens. The light chosen one, once soft and always open, finally reaches their edge. They awaken the part of themselves that says no more, that refuses to be drained, that learns to strike, not to hurt, but to protect. There's a moment in every light-bringer's path where their love becomes a sword, where their compassion sharpens into discernment, where their grace is no longer cheap, becomes earned, contained, fierce. This evolution doesn't happen with fanfare. It happens quietly, in moments of heartbreak, betrayal, exhaustion, when the light-chosen one finally realizes they've been betraying themselves in the name of being good, when they stop bleeding for people who won't heal, when they stop being the light everyone takes from and start becoming the mirror that exposes. That moment is terrifying, because it feels like failure. But it's not. It's the divine midpoint. It's the integration point, the place where your love grows teeth. That's what no one tells you. Real spiritual growth doesn't make you more palatable, it makes you whole. And wholeness is messy, it's wild, it's unpredictable. Sometimes you'll need to be the storm that clears the field. Sometimes you'll need to be the sun that gently coaxes growth. The key is knowing when to be each and not apologizing for it. Because the world doesn't need more people stuck in polarity, it needs more masters of frequency. The masters, the true ones, aren't stuck in roles. They're not obsessed with being light workers or dark warriors. They are something else entirely. They are shapeshifters of energy. They are the ones who walk into any room and feel what's needed, not to please, but to balance. They can be fierce without losing compassion. They can be kind without being used. They know how to cut ties, and they know how to rebuild bridges. They have nothing to prove, because they are the proof. Their life is the message. And if you've ever felt yourself becoming that, confused, intense, switching between fierce silence and deep tenderness, you're not lost. You're evolving. You're entering the territory of those rare souls who no longer cling to an identity, but instead serve alignment. That's the path of the true chosen, the ones who can be the weapon and the healer, the shadow and the light, the grief and the grace, and still stay grounded. Let me ask you something bold. Can you let go of the image of who you thought you were supposed to be long enough to become who you really are? Because that image, the one you've clung to, the one that made others comfortable, that's the costume, the performance, the protection. But your real self, that's the being who can hold contradictions without crumbling, who can walk into fire without losing compassion, who can bless and curse and still stay clean in spirit. You are not meant to be predictable. You are meant to be true. Crossing the threshold. What happens when you no longer fear either side? There comes a rare moment in the life of a soul, a threshold moment, when you realize that you are no longer afraid of who you were or who you could become. That's the moment when the game changes. You don't fear the shadow because you've walked through it and didn't lose your soul. And you don't idealize the light because you've been blinded by it and still chose to see. You are no longer at war with your nature. You've crossed the threshold. And when you cross it, you become something terrifying and beautiful to the world around you. You become untouchable, not because you are hard, but because you are whole. Most people never cross this line. They live their lives gripping one side, fearing the other. Light beings who repress their rage, shadow walkers who numb their tenderness. But when you've felt the betrayal of both, when light fails to protect you and darkness fails to satisfy you, you reach a quiet place, a stillness. Not of neutrality, but of full spectrum awareness. You realize you don't need to escape either world. You are the bridge. And once you accept that role, reality starts reacting to you differently. You begin to see the world in ways most people never will. You can look at someone smiling and feel the scream buried under their kindness. You can listen to someone's sob story and know when it's truth or manipulation. You don't live in judgment, you live in discernment. You understand that everything is layered, that healing and harm often wear the same face, that people can carry both love and poison in the same breath. And instead of recoiling, you say, yes, I see all of you. Crossing this threshold doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. You don't waste energy on roles. You don't try to be the savior. You don't seek to be the rebel. You respond truthfully, precisely, powerfully. And this scares people who still rely on labels, because you can no longer be controlled through guilt. You can no longer be seduced by praise. You know how quickly love turns into projection. You've watched it happen too many times. So you stop looking for approval, and for the first time, you start looking inward. Not for answers, but for resonance. Here's the strange part. Once you stop fearing either side of your nature, you start attracting things you never could before. Opportunities open, people shift, not because you're doing something new, but because your frequency is untethered. You're no longer leaking energy trying to defend one part of you against the other. You've accepted that some days you'll be the quiet storm and other days the gentle light, and that acceptance sends out a signal this being is sovereign. But with that sovereignty comes a new challenge, one most don't see coming. Once you've crossed this line, there's no going back. You can't return to spiritual small talk. You can't unsee what you've seen. You won't be able to sit in rooms where people pretend, perform, and project. You will be invited less. But when you are invited, it will be to spaces of real power, real healing, real initiation. You won't have many companions on this path, but the ones you find will be forged from fire like you. No masks, no games, just real recognition. So here's a question that only those standing at the edge of this threshold can answer. Can you let yourself be misunderstood in order to be whole? Because that's what this path demands. The moment you stop clinging to being seen a certain way, holy, fierce, kind, intense, you become free. And with that freedom comes true power. Not loud power, not performative power, the kind of power that moves silently through rooms and rattles what's false without saying a word. You won't need to explain yourself anymore. You'll realize that those who are meant to see you will, and those who can't, you bless them anyway and keep walking. This is what it means to cross the threshold. You are no longer here to choose a side. You are here to embody both. You are no longer performing the part of the light or the dark. You are becoming the force behind both roles. Integration is the final destiny, becoming the living bridge between dimensions. At the end of every true spiritual journey, there is no spotlight, no grand applause, no final test or trophy waiting on the mountaintop. There is only this: integration, not transcendence, not escape, but full embodiment of all that you are: shadow and light, chaos and calm, rage and tenderness. And this is the final revelation. You are not meant to choose between darkness and light. You are meant to house both. You are not just a soul in transition. You are the very bridge between dimensions, walking as living proof that the impossible can coexist within one being. This is what it means to be truly chosen. Not to wear the title, but to become the temple, to hold frequencies that others run from, to walk through this world not trying to ascend out of it, but to root into it with divine clarity. Integration means you stop being pulled, you start being centered. You're no longer fragmented by extremes. You'll no longer need to compartmentalize your divinity. You see that your rage is not separate from your purpose. Your grief is not a flaw in your vibration. Your shadow is not a shameful secret. It's all part of the architecture of your awakening. This is why so few reach this place, because it's not glamorous, it's not photogenic, it can't be sold in a 30-second reel. Integration is subtle, it's quiet. It happens in the way you speak truth without urgency, the way you walk into spaces and change the room just by being there, the way you hold contradiction without being torn apart by it. You become an anomaly in a world addicted to certainty. You become a mystery that doesn't need solving. You are the question and the answer, wrapped into one. But this kind of power has a new demand: responsibility. Because once you're integrated, people will feel safe around you, but they'll also be triggered. You'll be asked to guide, to teach, to hold space, but not everyone deserves your energy. That's part of integration too, discerning where you are called to give and where you are called to walk away. You are not here to save anyone. You are here to embody truth so fully that others remember how to save themselves. So now I ask you, can you walk through this world without trying to explain yourself anymore? Can you live as a living paradox, knowing some will call you angel and others demon, and neither will be fully wrong? Can you accept that your role is not to fix, but to remind? Because if you can do that, if you can hold the fire and the light, the grief and the glory, the silence and the roar, then you've done something most souls will never do. You've come home, up to one side, or breathing at top dull sides, and in that you stop seeking the next step, because you realize you are the step, you are the path, you are the proof that yes, a dark chosen one can become light, and yes, a light chosen one can descend into shadow and return more whole than ever. You are not either. You are the doorway. You are not becoming anything. You already are.